I'd like to call the meeting of the Urbana City Council to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Here.
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Jacobson?
Here.
Mr. Madigan?
Here.
Ms. Marlin?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Mr. Smythe?
Still here.
Mayor Pressing.
Here. First of all, we'll have a presentation from TWG Development. And just come and have a seat up there. And, oh, Brandon is going to start first? Okay. Go ahead.
Good evening. So I'm very pleased to announce tonight that TWG Development LLC is the firm that was selected to engage with the city on a full block redevelopment of the 200 Vine site just north of the city building here. TWG is an Indianapolis-based firm with over 25 years of experience in residential and mixed-use projects in urban settings. A little background on the process that brings us to this current point. The city entered into a listing agreement with CBRE back in September 2014, and we issued an RFP in March of 2015. Our Representative Gordon Hendry from CBRE is here tonight. He's led this process on our behalf and has put in a lot of effort that has led to where we are today. And tonight we're joined by several representatives from TWG. We have Tony Noble, who's the president, Joseph Whitsett, CEO, Dennis Dye, principal, and J.B. Curry, development analyst. And I'll turn things over to Tony and J.B. here at the front table to tell us a little more about their company.
Is this on? How's this?
You shouldn't need to press the
Okay.
button. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for having us here tonight. So as Brandon said, we've been in discussions and interested in this site for the last probably 8 to 12 weeks. But I'll give you a little background on ourselves, kind of how projects we're usually interested in. And then I'll let JB maybe talk, even though we're not going to get into any specific details, maybe why this fits our model and what we do. TWG was started 8 years ago. We focus on primarily still. One of our key businesses is tax incentivized transactions. That started out as low-income housing projects, tax credit projects, and also historic tax credit projects. Over the last 36 months or so, we've also gotten very involved in market rate transactions where we raise capital for projects that are larger. When we started, the projects we focused on were 40 to 50 unit projects, just because those are good sizes when you get started. Projects we focus now on and we have in our book are somewhere between 100 and 200 units that are in our market rate space. If you look at our company, we have 3 main divisions. We have a development finance group, and then a construction group and a marketing group. Kind of takes it all the way through the process of development or full service group. We have about 120 people that work for us. We are a regional company. So we focus on Indiana as our main state, and then we would try to do any business in any state that touches Indiana, and then out and beyond that, we have business in Iowa. So this project is interesting to us because it kind of fits our mission of trying to grow our business and our footprint. I think the most comparable project to this that we have in our booklet here, and not to focus on all of the projects, but if you were to look at the Lockerbie Lofts projects.
And all the members of council should have a packet in front of you.
Yeah. So this project is in downtown Indianapolis. It's what we'd say urban infill project. Very comparable to what we would like to do in a project or on a site like we've been discussing with Brandon. So it's a square with underground parking, 4 stories of wood construction above, and it's something we profess to be good at. I don't know if we are, but we think we are. So so that would be the most comparable. It's a new construction project. And then the rest of our business would be historic rehabs. That's a lot of what we have in here. So that's pretty quickly about us. The packet also has information on our team that's here. And I'll turn over to JB to add anything you might.
Sure. Kind of on top of what Tony said, in regards to this site in particular, I think one of the first things that drew us to it was just that the city owns the land and the city seems supportive of a similar type market rate development. Every project we've done seems to not be easy, and it also requires just support of the city to want to do something. We don't want to build something that you all do not want to be a part of, much less want to see, live, and work around. So that's why we're here this evening. That's why I've been talking with Brandon quite extensively about different types of unit counts, whether you want office space, retail space, what type of mixed use, how we're going to get parking involved as well. So it's a good sized site, just over 1.75 acres, I believe. I love the location as well. I think it's right close to Main Street and right close to this building as well. So we really like the site. We like the city. We've kind of gotten to know a little bit more, I think, about the town, the employers, where other, I guess, comparable developments are, and we think this would be a great new construction product. We would develop it, we would build it, we would manage it, we would own it. So, you know, we are very involved, and we take this very seriously, especially from the ground up, because we're involved for a long time. So, we really appreciate your all's time here this evening, and we're happy to talk more in detail about the project as you want. General terms, general just kind of ideas, what you want to see, what you've seen before, what you think would work, what you think wouldn't. We're certainly open to any feedback you have. This is very preliminary from our standpoint, but we're certainly here and open to hear what you have all to say. So thank you for having us.
So,
Dennis,
oh.
got a question.
Right. Yeah, Brendan, can I ask questions or make comments?
Certainly. I just have a few more things to share with council, but if you'd like to ask questions.
Do you want to make them, and then I'd like to ask some questions.
Okay. Just to talk a little about next steps. TWG has graciously invited city officials to come to Indianapolis to see some of their projects. So staff will be reaching out to council members and other city officials to see if we can schedule a site visit especially of Lockerbie Lofts and others sites in Indianapolis, so you can get a very tangible sense of what TWG has accomplished and could bring to our community. Staff will be negotiating a redevelopment agreement. So in the usual form, staff will bring forward a negotiated development agreement to council for approval. That could come as early as late January, or we'll see how that progresses. So that'll be the order of events, I suppose. There'll be other actions that'll be required. There'll be most likely a zoning change as well. That I don't know if that normally goes to council or not, but that'll work its way through the normal process as well.
Okay, Dennis has a question.
Sure, or maybe just
Comment?
general comment or interaction. In that I represent the ward against which and in which the building is constructed, and I live in the East Urbana neighborhood, 3 blocks from where the building is going to be built, and represent a lot of my neighbors. We have some concerns. We've adopted like 4 or 5 years ago an East Urbana historic neighborhood white paper, which enumerated some of the concerns that we have. I would suggest that you get a copy of that from Libby Tyler's office. And of course, we have residential right across the street from on Urbana Street, on the east side of Urbana Street, which would be adjacent to the building.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that the neighborhood is significantly concerned about, I think they realize that there's going to be development there and that it might be large. But of course, the transition edge on Urbana Street is of concern to them. So, one of the issues, of course, we were concerned about would be parking. So I understand from our community development department that parking is imagined to be underground, pretty much 100%. Is that correct? Or
Yeah,
90% or?
One level
On-site,
underground,
yeah.
one spot per apartment.
Okay. And then if there was retail, would there also be accommodation for that in the underground parking? Would there be aspects of that included in your underground parking plan?
Yeah, we typically see about 0.8 cars per bedroom is what we would typically estimate. So we would overbuild probably 200 to 210 spaces, and then hopefully be able to capture some, I mean, with the public parking also across the street, we would think that maybe 210 spaces would be enough.
The public parking across the street is spoken for.
Okay.
It's not available to this development. I mean, as a matter of fact, some people say there's not enough parking in that. So I think you'd have to consider
Yeah,
that.
we
I
would
think
work
you're
with
talking about
Brick.
Lincoln Square.
We'd definitely sit down with you with the plan and work through, we were assuming 5,000 square feet of retail. So we would sit down and if you thought that the parking was inadequate, we would definitely make any adjustments if we needed to cut a couple units out or do whatever it took to satisfy the neighborhood's concerns.
Okay, and then just in general, I appreciate the idea of trying to incorporate retail on the first floor and office space as well as apartments.
Mm-hmm.
And my hope is that because of the significant location in town, that this looks less like an apartment house than a urban residential office building. In other words, to have a little more significant presence in the community, that there would be an aspect. This is on a major street in the city, and our hope is to actually bring economic opportunity and business further, expand it from the immediate downtown. This is at the edge of the immediate the older downtown. So that's one of my concerns. So to give you my point of view, models that I would recommend you look at for the facade treatment would be Stratford House on North Ray Street. I think that's 202 North Ray Street.
Mm-hmm.
And Gregory Place 1 and 2 next to the campus, which are good-looking, substantially successful buildings of a similar nature, which we're hoping to see at this location. And so of the constructions that you've shown me, the flats at the Switch and Pullman Square Phase 2 are ones that I could hope to see reflected in your proposal, but I would rather not enjoy something that looked like the Lockerbie Loft, which to me looks like a student apartment house or something, which I think is just not quite significant enough for a downtown development that's probably going to be built to the sidewalk.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'm just going to give that. And part of the success of the others, I think, is the more significant use of brick on the facade. I mean, I don't mind having glass, of course, but I think that more substantial materials that are used on the facade, certainly on the race side, will upgrade this building, and I think it'll draw customers and residences. As long as it doesn't look like a student housing project, but it looks like a retail, office, and high-scale residential project, I would support it. I just want to say that because it sounds like we might be veering toward something that might be just slightly less desirable, and I'm very much interested in the aesthetics of our community. So I'm just going to tell you that now.
Yeah, no, thanks for the feedback. I think it'd be completely our intention to sit down if we did get an agreement done as far as how it would be, we would fund the project, or with your support, that we would get all input, especially from your neighborhood, being that that's your ward.
And the building, it looked like, well, we don't know what the plan is because you don't have a plan yet, but you were considering, I suppose, a ring courtyard sort of format, so there'd be windows on the interior as well as exterior.
Yeah, I think ultimately it depends on, what the makeup of the building is. I think, as you said, because this is kind of the edge of the historic downtown, it's important to have mixed use there. Just how much mixed use is what we still need to work through. Is
Sure.
what's viable as far as how much office we put in there, if any, or retail and so forth. So I just bring that up because if there's office or retail, maybe, you know, a ringed courtyard with a pool probably isn't the best use, but there definitely will be a courtyard with some kind of amenity space.
Okay, and I realize that mixed use is sometimes a hard success story. I don't know, you know, I mean, interest in that kind of office use or construction development use works really well in some neighborhoods, and I'm just thinking about the buildings downtown, say in Naperville and other significantly successful communities, I think are a great model. And to what extent you can incorporate them into your building, the better you can do that, and the more diversified it is while supporting downtown residential loft space or whatever you want to call it. I think it could be a great success, and it will work with our neighborhood. I think our neighborhood expects something of a you know, high scale, high, you know, and higher. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be 3 or 4 stories, but we're kind of ready in our consciousness to think that that could happen. And as a city council member, I'm very interested in having an expansion of the use of the downtown so that retail then can encompass Lincoln Square Mall, possibly for the future, and become a downtown that's more than a block and a half deep. That's really a great goal for us, and I think that how you can contribute to this significant site would really be an amenity to the city. That's it.
Eric?
So you'll find that one of the joys of working with us is that we don't all have the same opinion as each other. And I, for one, do not find a modern urban look a bad look, especially downtown. Others may disagree. As far as whether it's, I'm really interested in this issue, but I would defer to a more, you know, technical analysis of whether this should be a mixed use or purely residential. I mean, my gut feeling, just being around the downtown, is that maybe we have more need for residents to support existing retail and office space, and we don't have much need for more retail and office space. And I was kind of guessing that because the project that you pointed out to us was Lockerbie Lofts, which is completely residential, that your preliminary analysis at least is going in that direction.
Lockerbie has 2,200 square feet of retail or office.
Oh.
It has a small optometrist in there. I think, you know, when we look at the market, we see Stratford and some other market rate apartments around downtown. But I would tend to agree that there may be some more density in terms of more people living in downtown would be a good thing. So, and then it seems like, and I'm not any expert on the office space here, but it seems like maybe there's still some space to backfill around town in certain older buildings on the main street. So if there was a user that was supported by the town or the city to put in there as far as office space, that would be great. But I don't think right now we kind of agree with your assessment.
Diane?
Just a couple of questions and
Sure.
a comment. First of all, welcome. Second, of all the projects you've built, you said your company was 8 years old?
It's 8 years old, but Joe, our CEO, has been in this industry for 25
Okay.
years.
Of the ones that TWG has built, how
Mhm.
many of those do you still own and manage personally, or by the
Yeah, I
company?
mean, the overwhelming majority, I would almost say, at this point, all of them. A lot of the tax advice transactions had come with a tail, or some kind of a hook, so we have to be involved for 5 or 15 years. We make a commitment for the funding. On the market rate side, it is our model to build them and create that value and realize it through either some kind of a refinance or a sale. So this project would be what we would consider our high-end product, which would, you know, without talking specifics about getting too deep into the details, that would be stainless steel appliances, granite countertops, nice flooring, backsplashes, tile in the bathrooms.
So wait, let me back up
Yeah.
a minute. market rate apartments you tend to resell?
We would, this one. We would put it together and we'd work with, the project, the switch that was brought up a second ago, I don't know if someone said they liked it or didn't like it, I forget, but the one in Fishers, Indiana is a project we worked with the city. Commonly when we work with cities, they'll say, we want you to hold on to this for 3 years or 4 years. So that's something that we would work with the group here in the city and say, you know, what's the objective? Is this, do you want us to hold on to this for a couple of years? And if we sold before that, there'd be some kind of an agreed upon exit fee, if you will.
Okay, and then what is your market that you're looking at, your target market?
Yeah, I mean, I think for this side here, you know, we wouldn't be targeting the students that you would see down the street. This would be empty nesters, young professionals. We were surprised, or at least I was, when we started putting the market rate apartments in Indianapolis, or the demand that we've gotten for our project that we're completing soon in Des Moines. A lot of people are downsizing, empty nesters are, and then a lot of young professionals, because they saw the single-family housing market be such a tough thing for maybe the people that got out of college 5 or 10 years ago, that they want the flexibility to have an apartment. So be young professionals, people in their, you know, mid to late 20s, and then people that maybe were, you know, for whatever, empty nesters, whatever that age range is.
So you're looking at 1 and 2 bedroom apartments
That's correct.
rather than 4 bedroom
No,
units. It's 1
do
and
we
2
have
bedrooms.
studios here?
Studios, 1s and 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
That'd be our proposed mix.
Okay. And I guess my comment is, I've actually watched a couple of the Champaign Council meetings where they talked about their open space requirements, and this idea of a courtyard and a swimming pool and a dog wash area is that's kind of standard, and I think we as a council ought to think about our own open space requirements with this type of downtown development, because our open space requirements drive things like requiring courtyards and requiring balconies, which may or may not be what people want, or from a safety standpoint, what we want. And I think this project would give us an opportunity to review our own open space requirements for specifically downtown developments, and it might allow you some more, or us some more flexibility in the appearance of the building, you know, where the parking is located. Parking requirements are another thing too. So I think we ought to be open to looking at our own ordinances for this particular project, because I'm not sure at this point I don't know if a swimming pool is a desirable amenity or not, but there could be a better design that comes out of having some flexibility in our own requirements. And I think we ought to be very careful with the design of this building. So I hope we as a council look at this.
Okay, Aaron Ammons.
So, it's good to see you again, Brandon. And gentlemen, thank you for coming. Tony and JB, right?
Correct.
Yes.
All right. You said you have about 120 employees in your company.
That's right.
So one of the things that's extremely important to me, as you definitely will find out, is diversity, and how is your company, your sort of governance structure and stuff like that. So of those 120 employees, how many of them are non-white?
Non-white?
Yeah.
I would say, what do you think? 30. Yeah, quarter. 32. Yeah, quarter or so.
Is this something that you keep your numbers on, or like what your diversity is like in decision-making positions? Because I noticed that everyone that you have in your paperwork here and everyone that you brought with you certainly doesn't fit into that category.
Well, it is a family company. Joe's my stepdad.
Okay.
I would say our HR department definitely keeps tabs on that, and we would let you know, but I would say about a quarter. I mean, it's definitely not an all-white holiday party, if that's what you're asking.
Well, I see that the regional manager, the gentleman, is African-American, but I don't know how many, like, real decision-making, money-making decisions that you guys are making here at the table.
Yeah, Ken,
right
who's
now.
listed, he runs our market rate division, so he would come and set all the rents for the properties. He would help us pick out the amenities on this project.
Okay. And as far as the qualifications for the tenants and stuff like that, what do you look at as far as, I see a lot of set-asides, and what does that mean, rent set-asides and appropriate set-asides, other verification forms identified? as for a qualification, how do you determine whether or not somebody's qualified to be a tenant?
Well, I mean, on a market rate project like what this would be, we would look at it and see if we think they can afford the rent or not. So it would just purely be based upon their income compared to the rent. The reason that's referenced is because about half of our business are affordable transactions. And we mentioned to Brandon, we'd love to do an affordable deal in Urbana as well, if that was something someone was open to. But this project is more just driven by the market, who can afford the rent.
Are there any other things that would disqualify someone from being able to stay in these apartments?
I mean, we have the ability to say yes or no if someone lives here. And we have some flexibility. I mean, we look at criminal history and things like that, but in credit.
So these are two concerns for me, because it's not listed as a disqualifying. So the management, you guys basically, as you own it and you manage it, you would make the decision. So an individual, if they just have a felony conviction, they're not able to live there. Is that how it works?
Everyone would be held to the same standard. So it depends on what it's for.
Even if they could afford it?
Yes.
I'd like to see what specific guidelines you would have as
Yeah,
far
we
as
can
that would
provide those,
disqualify
definitely.
someone.
Yeah,
from something
we'll
like that.
provide something that we would use for one of our market rate projects and that we're leasing up right now. And we'd just use the same for here.
The number of, so like when you're doing the building and developing, when you go through that whole process of building, developing, how many people do you employ during that process? Do you bring your own people, or do you use the local labor market?
Yeah, so I think to use an example of what's going on right now, and I've talked about Des Moines some, but in Cincinnati or Des Moines, I strongly think we need to have a local presence. So we'll either have someone, as far as who's going to run the construction, so from our side. So we'll have someone who will live here. They'll be our employee. We'll either hire them from this market, or they'll be one of our people that we will relocate. But in terms of subcontractors that we'll use, because really the majority of what we do is construction management. I mean, we hire out 99%, 95% of it would be local groups. I mean, there are a couple very trusted subcontractors that we may bring with us, and we also have a carpentry crew that will go in and do finish work. But the majority of those people and subs would be from this market. So on our payroll, 2 or 3 people plus our carpentry crews. So maybe 5 or 6 of our people, and then it's tough to say how big the crews of the subcontractors would be. But I would say over in the heat of the construction at the most busy time, there would probably be somewhere between 80 and 100 people on site working.
And so part of the, you said that using local labor and subcontractors and stuff, union labor?
We don't commit to union labor. We would definitely put this out to bid, and whoever has the best price. A lot of times, the market will dictate that, as far as, some markets are more heavy union than others, and some trades within those markets are more union than others. So we would come and make calls to subcontractors and kind of do our diligence up front and figure that out.
And my last question in relationship to the subcontractors that you bring in. A lot of the work that I've been doing outside of the council also looks at, you have the individuals who come and approach, and we have a deal that's mutually beneficial for both parties. But also, when you start talking about the incentives that come with that and the subcontracting that goes along with it, do you at all track or monitor your subcontractors and what sort of level of diversity they bring to the table?
Yeah, it's very typical for us when we would get an incentive from municipality for them to have XB, MB, WB requirements, and those we are very used to being held to those requirements, percentages of work done, and we do track those.
I'd like to see some of the numbers that you have on that as well.
Yeah, we can provide those for a project or two in Indianapolis that we've done,
Okay.
or we've had project agreements.
Thank you.
Okay, Charlie.
Oh, welcome.
Thanks.
I like the flats at Switch, personally, from what I've looked through here. Couple of things come to mind. I had brought up the issue of housing for young professionals to a previous group. They've built on University Avenue, and I wish them well, but they're building a bunch of 4-bedroom apartments, and in an area where, you know, there are graduate students and young professionals that are going to be just driving right by there and wishing they could live there. So I think you are absolutely right in targeting that market, because I think there's a real lack. You've got Carl right over here, you've got the university here, and people want to live downtown and don't have a level of luxury that I hope is affordable, and so on. So I think that's a really good target. So I appreciate you guys doing that. The other thing I was going to say is we are a gig city. We can set you up with several different providers that we can talk to. Hopefully you can be wired in. The fiber backbone rings run right by here, so you're literally feet from gig internet service. And I think over time you'll see that gig go even higher very easily as equipment gets swapped out. So you will be able to offer triple play with gig backbone to your residents. So welcome, and look forward to your work.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I want to say I really like the underground parking part of it, rather than covering up more land with parking lots. Anybody else? Bill Brown.
Yeah, I'd like to just say I agree that the target market for the young professionals is probably underserved in downtown, probably in most of Urbana, actually. As far as Aaron's concerns with the prior conviction, we do have a human rights ordinance that doesn't allow discrimination on prior conviction. You're welcome to, check background references and all that, but other than that, I assume that you guys would have to do the same thing everybody else does. I'm not sure that would be a big concern. I guess I would kind of be interested in seeing some of your projects. I'm interested in more about how we can arrange that. And I want to make sure you are aware that we have a couple of other RFPs out, that one for downtown, and you guys have probably talked about that, and one for the Washington Street. Is that still out, Brandon? Washington and Philo Road?
Well, we were seeking representation for that property,
okay,
not a request for
so that might
proposals
be
for
something
redevelopment.
that they could put on
Not
their
yet, at least.
radar, although that might not be a housing complex. Do you also do just basic commercial strip mall kind of things, or is it mostly housing?
Mostly housing. I mean, we kind of would defer to somebody else to do that. If it was a mixed-use component, we would probably hire a retail or an office broker to lease that out. But if it was strictly a commercial project without any housing, we'd probably pass on that.
And then what's the market like for condos these days? I know in the past people have proposed condos, and then they've kind of shied away from it lately. Is that kind of a trend? Is it something that is likely to change? I'm kind of looking toward retirement years and thinking about a condo.
Well, you can live in an apartment first, see if you like, the smaller footprint, and then go to a condo. No, I think I think the condo market is still difficult to finance large projects. I think what I've seen is you see a smaller 10, 20 unit projects with smaller footprints go up, because you just have to get so many people to commit up front as far as people that are going to buy those condos, as far as down payments and deposits. I don't envy condo developers. It's not really what we would want to do. But I think, they're fitting a need, like you said. They're working in Indianapolis, or in other markets that we've done stuff in Des Moines, but they are smaller 20, 30 unit projects, because I think that the financing partners, unless you have all your own money, people don't really want to put up a bunch of money for a condo project still. They're still a little perceived as risky still, I think.
Thanks.
Dennis.
And I guess this is really more for Brandon. Can I ask you a question? Does staff not feel that a development on the 200 block of Vine can support retail? Wouldn't this be one of the goals that we would hope to achieve, to expand possible shopping in, just off of Main Street and deeper into the community near Lincoln Square Mall. And it sounds like these people are mainly interested in apartment building. And what is where do we drop the potential for something with a little plus in it?
Well, going back to the RFP that was issued in March of this year, the focus has been on residential, although we've kept it open to mixed use. Staff really isn't in a strong position to dictate what the market will support on the site, and we really rely upon, well, TWG in this case, but we were very open from the onset of relying on the expertise of the developer who will be assuming the majority of the risk in making that development. So while we are actively working with TWG to see how much retail or otherwise commercial the project can support, and we're certainly going to do what we can through our redevelopment agreement to encourage that, ultimately we'll be limited by what together we can show and demonstrate that the market can support at the site. So we will be working to try to enhance that commercial aspect, but there's a limitation to it that we all have to look at together and agree upon.
Anyone else?
I have one final question. Gosh, I think I've forgotten now. Oh, about the agreement. To Diane's point, I was also concerned about the length of time. Is there a quote-unquote hook in this agreement of staying around for X amount of time before you guys leave? Like, is there something in this agreement?
We haven't drafted the agreement yet, so that's something we'll look at our past practices as a city and development agreements, and we'll also ask TWG about their prior experience, and we'll negotiate something reasonable and bring it to council.
I would just add, we'd be open to, some kind of a reasonable hold period. I mean, we don't want to just come in and flip it and run away from town, so.
Eric?
Have all of your projects at this, sort of order of magnitude so far succeeded?
So far.
Well, because
not to
nothing
say we're
lasts
never going to have
forever.
one that doesn't, but so far they've been okay.
They've been okay, okay.
Yeah.
Nothing went south and,
No, I mean,
had to be abandoned
we've
or
had some
bailed
historic
out?
rehabs or some other things that have been over budget and been difficult and taken longer than we'd like. But no, I mean, we've been, lucky to have low interest rates and be able to finance our way out of problems for the
Right.
most part. But a project like this, where we work together with the city, I mean, our goal is to make it as low risk as possible, and really just if the market turns on us in the middle, that would be tough. But so far, no bad projects.
I just wanted to chime in. Again, I'm Gordon Hendry with CBRE, and I'm the city's advisor on this project. And these guys are too humble to toot their own horns, but I will just say that they have a sterling reputation in the city of Indianapolis. They've done a number of great projects, highly successful in the city's downtown, and I think are very well regarded. So you can give me the $20 a little later, but no, I'm just kidding. But they do some really great projects and have a very strong reputation.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Okay, Diane?
Well, I just hope we take this opportunity to do something really neat. I mean, just not the run-of-the-mill stuff. I just think this location is too important, and this is an opportunity to really create something that will draw people and make people want to live downtown. So I really want us to think outside of the standard apartment box. And you guys sound like you can do it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, we're still in petitions and communications. I have one person who wants to be noted, Bishop King James and Reverend Dr. Evelyn Underwood. do not wish to speak but are continuing their concern about the sewer problem. Is there anyone else who would like to address the Urbana City Council? Oh, Libby Tyler, Community Development Director.
Yeah, I know it's a special meeting, so we don't have staff reports, but I do have some announcements I wanted to bring to your attention. This Wednesday, December 16th, there is a ribbon-cutting ceremony, an open house for an emergency shelter for families at Maple Grove is the name, and this is a project that the City of Urbana has been working on with several other partners, been a longstanding need in our community, and so we're thrilled to be a part of this ribbon cutting and open house. It starts at 10:30, and the ribbon cutting's at 10:45 a.m., and then there's the tours, et cetera, until noon. The address is 302 East Park Street. And the program will take place outdoors, so it says warm attire, but hasn't been that cold lately. So that's Wednesday. I know you've got a lot of extra time this week. Then on Thursday, we are going to have a dedication of the 86th Habitat Home for Humanity of Champaign County. Many, many of these have been in Urbana. We've made a huge difference in many of our neighborhoods. This will be Thursday, December 17th at 5:30 at 807 North Romine. The family is Tanisha Young and her family. So please join us for that event on Thursday. And then I had a quick update on our blight reduction program, and I know that Aaron will be very excited to hear about the progress that we have actually completed the purchases and demolitions of 3 longstanding problematic properties, 1310 Hill Street, 5 Hill Court, and 1114 Church Street. So we're well on our targets for the BRP grant, in working with Grants Management and Habitat for Humanity in our partnership.
Any questions for Libby?
Thank you. I'll make sure, I'm sure there's going to be a celebration or something over on Hill Court.
Okay, thank you very much. Looks like Bill Gray would like to say something. Public Works Director.
Yeah, for general interest, the City of Urbana, not once but twice, have been recognized by the Federal Highway Administration in a case studies in delivering safe, comfortable, and connected pedestrians and bicycle networks. And the projects they have listed in here are the Safe Route to School program we finished about 2 years ago now, which added not only bike racks at schools, but bike routes, bike lanes, bicycle facilities, all in and around 5 different schools. So that's highlighted in here. And then our Main Street road diet, bicycle lane conversion, 1.5 mile project from downtown out east on Main Street is also looked in here as a case study project. So I just thought I'd bring that to your attention that nationally we're being recognized twice in this particular study.
And I also noticed the stoplights are now, or the signals are now working at Windsor and Race, which is good. Diane.
I just had a reminder for the council. I sent out an announcement a few days ago, but Wednesday, December 16th at 1 o'clock, we are all invited to go to Willard Airport to meet the new director of the airport and to tour the renovated American Airlines facilities at the airport and basically get an update on what's in store. And this is all part of the Fly Champaign Urbana marketing and branding effort.
What was the time again, Diane?
1 o'clock at Willard Airport.
And this is Wednesday, right?
This coming Wednesday, yes. And I have an RSVP address for you if you want. Or I'll just email it to you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay. Next, we have a motion to formally accept the Urbana IDOT Traffic Stop Data Task Force. And we have a letter from Human Relations, Alex Batista, and also a resolution.
Move approval.
I'll second.
Motion by Smythe, seconded by Roberts, to accept the final report.
So that all we're voting on to support is the final report?
Right, we're going to discuss the item by item, but this is just to formally acknowledge the receipt. Eric?
So if this is in order at this time, I'd like to request that we place an item on the agenda for our first meeting in January to start the process of prioritizing consideration of the recommendations in the report.
Second.
Okay, we can do that first. No, we already have a motion, don't we?
We have a
But we-
motion on the floor. I guess I'm really...
Okay, we'll do that, you'll do yours next.
Yeah, I'm just requesting a sense of the council so that,
Well, yeah.
directing the clerk to put that on the agenda for that,
Okay.
for that meeting.
We can do that. Okay, so all those in favor of the motion to accept the report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries, and yes, we will start the discussion in January.
Oh, do I want, I guess I'm...
The first committee meeting in January, you want that?
Yes, yes. I
Okay.
guess the first time we gather together will be Committee of the Whole.
The first time is always a council meeting,
Okay,
so it'll be the first committee meeting.
yeah, let's do the first Committee of the Whole in the new year.
Okay, we will do that. Okay, moving on, we have resolution number 2015-12-071R, a resolution to authorize the entry into and execution of an agreement between the City of Champaign as lead agency for MetCad and the City of Urbana regarding payment of MetCad fees. And I would just like to say that we came up with a compromise that MetCad, taking our increase for this year, and I'll hand out what the increases have been, so you'll get some kind of reason for why this has concerned me so much. The amount that they're asking for this year is $682,842, and 3 years ago is $385,000. So it's really skyrocketed, and it could have been set up so that it was more evenly paced out. This is to not just to fund the operations, but this is to also fund the capital outlay. So the reason I've tried, last year they gave us the ability to set a $127,000 increase, spread it out over 5 years, and this increase this year was about $104,000. We budgeted $10,000 of that. We included that in the budget, and I was given the information that Champaign was willing to negotiate again, which is why I didn't put their total amount in the budget. I'm concerned because we have so many other uncertainties since the state has not passed its budget, but I asked Mike Munson to do some other expenses that are facing us, and Elizabeth Hannon has projected that we need about $4 million over the next 3 years for vehicle equipment replacement, and we have over $2 million in increased expenses in the current year budget, or for next year's budget, and that was $575,000 for the salary increases that we've committed to, $100,000 in increased MetCad costs, $1.3 million in VERF increases, and $40,000 in expenses for the Economic Development Fund. We have tens of millions of dollars. I can't even give you a specific figure in future capital expenses. Road projects, extending Florida Avenue to Illinois 130 would cost $2 million, and we sometimes have to use other money because we don't get enough money from the state in motor fuel tax. So we are facing a lot of uncertainties, and by getting a loan, it's not really a loan, but by stretching out our increase this year, that's giving us some flexibility. And they wanted to have the first payment be due this year, so we're asking for about, I think, $19,000 to be added to the budget this year, instead of the original amount, which would have been $94,000. So I would appreciate your support on this. I'm still working on trying to get the law changed so that we can charge what our voters approved. And as I said last week, Michael J. Madigan, the Speaker of the House, was very concerned that we were not allowed to charge what our voters approved. So there is a task force, a commission that's working for the next 2 years. They're the ones that set up the 87 cents for everybody except Chicago, which got $3.90. And I'm trying to get all the people who had their voters approve more than that to work together to try to get what is reasonable funding. So in the meantime, because we've raised this issue, the City of Champaign did voluntarily say, throw out a number for next year, which was going to be 16%. Like the last few years, we had 18%, 17%, 28% last year, and 18% this year. And for next year, they were going to do 16%. And Dorothy David talked about 6.5%. So I think the fact that we've raised this issue is getting MetCAD to think about having the rest of the increases be spread out more over time. And where the intention is to have MetCAD be fully funded in its capital outlay by 2021 or so. And we can't afford to do that, obviously, for the city. But what I'm trying to do is, as I said, change the underlying financing. So the beginning of the ordinance is for MetCAD. We have separate, well, first we have a resolution to authorize the entry into the agreement, and then we have an ordinance to revise the budget after that. And then that's followed by some other budget ordinances.
Move resolution 2015-1271R.
Okay.
A second.
Okay. Diane?
I had a question.
Sure.
Is the way this is worded allow for prepayment if in
Definitely.
the future the council decides to do that
Yes.
with no penalty?
No, there's no penalty. I'm sure there will be no penalty if we pay early. And they asked for 1%, so we're going to make the first, if you agree to this, we'll make the first payment before June 30th and the second payment right after July 1st. So that'll save us some interest. But if we come into some money, if we win the lawsuit, for example, we can pay it. But I think the current system isn't really what we want for the long term because it has shifted the burden so much to local governments and especially to the county and to Urbana. The City of Champaign only got a 1% increase. And, you know, part of it is that we're getting some better service, some more bandwidth, I guess, for the radio systems. Dennis?
Yeah, I certainly am going to vote for this and support it. And I just want to say thank you for negotiating with the other MetCAD operatives to make the burden for the city of Urbana more equitable over a couple of years, and I appreciate your effort in trying to make that happen for us.
Okay. Diane?
And I think the larger thanks should go to the other MetCAD members for agreeing to give Urbana this flexibility because it was, well, we need to thank the other MetCAD members. And I still think we should be paying the bill in full, but there's not a support on the council for that, so I will be extremely reluctantly voting for this.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah, I also wanted to pay the bill in full, as public record states. This is a loan. If you owe a certain amount of money and you don't pay it now, but you pay it later with interest, it's a loan. I've been trying to understand the MetCAD funding system, and I've been trying to understand, I mean, the MetCAD funding formula was changed by the state legislature just 5 months ago, I believe. It was in July. It was late spring or early summer. And I just wonder whether there is really support for revisiting that again, because there was a lot of debate about it, and everybody legislature was patting themselves on the back and felt they had solved the MetCAD problem, according to all the news accounts. So I would love it if, in fact, support could be brought to bear on changing the MetCAD formula. I would hope that present and prospective legislators might champion that cause, but I don't see evidence of it so far.
Well, I would like to point out, Eric, that what was set up was commissioned to study this over 2 years. And one of the reasons that we only got 87 cents is that some of the people on the other committee that set up, the legislation were representing the telephone companies. And they made the statement that they wanted one rate for the entire state. Of course, they accepted Chicago because they said they couldn't do 102 different rates, meaning because we have 102 different counties in the state. I think they are very good at billing. They've never missed a call that I've ever made, and so I'm sure they could handle 102. But you could see by Michael J. Madigan's response when I raised this at the Illinois Municipal League that he was not aware of the position that we'd been put in. So I think the push really was to set up a committee to study it further and come up with a solution. So they're not committed to the 87 cents right now, and they need to look at it statewide, and I think there isn't a number that you can pick that's going to fit everybody. It really should be a local option because situations vary from place to place.
I hope that works.
Okay, we have a motion by Smythe, seconded by Roberts. Any other discussion? Yes, Mr. Madigan, Mr. P. Madigan. Right?
The other.
Mike.
Help me
Michael
with my
P.
branding.
Madigan.
His first name is the other, and his middle
Okay,
name
he's
is Mike.
changed his name officially to the other. Okay.
First of all, I just have a minor typo I want to point out.
Okay.
But I think we ought to fix it. In the second whereas on the second page, in the fourth line, it says the Illinois General Assembly's plural, and I believe that should be Y''S.
Okay.
So just a grammatical thing, but I just thought we ought to
Okay.
fix that.
I guess I can't even find it. Do you see that, Madam Clerk? You got it? Okay. All right, we'll go with the correction.
So then my question turns to one of substance. I note in the staff memo for the next proposed ordinance regarding fee schedule, or one of the next, I don't know if it's the next. In the fiscal impact section, it reads, the unassigned fund balance in the general operating fund after this amendment will be 6.9 million plus, which is 21.3% of expenditures. This includes a revised beginning of the year fund balance from the first quarter financial report, which was higher than expected because of expenditures for the year ended June 30, 2016 were about 1.6 million less than budget. So I don't know. Somebody, I guess, needs to explain that again to me. I know that there might be some great reason why we continue to say, gee, we can do this fee or do that fee, and we have $6.9 million in the general operating fund, but then why don't we have the ability to pay $90-some thousand to MedCat? That's what I continue to not understand.
Okay, what we did was go through what other expenses we haven't budgeted yet because we just didn't have the money. And that was the vehicle replacement fund, which is $4 million, $2.2 million for other increases that we expect next year, and then an untold amount in future capital expenses. So we are facing a lot of uncertainty in terms of what is the legislature going to do for local governments. They're in a tremendous bind. They don't have enough money to pay their pensions. And so that's why you can't look at that 6.6 million and say that's available to spend or to cut taxes, because it really has already been accounted for, that we have unmet needs. So that And it's high because we had the end of a TIF district, so it's higher than it usually was. We had a goal of 10%, and so we just happened to have done well last year, but we can't count on that every year. There's not going to be another TIF that's going to give us a lot of money, so we don't know if we lose the lawsuit with the hospitals, then that's going to hurt us some more. So that's why I'm saying I really tried to keep the budget limited, and we moved $100,000 in social service funding from the general fund to the township, and that's why $100,000 is big to us when we're trying to balance the budget. So that's why I didn't want to add another $100,000 to the MetCAD, because we'd already added several $100,000 in just 3 years. You know, we did pay the $127,000 the very next year. We just took 1 year and spread it out over 5 years, which meant that the average increase over those 2 years was half of $28,000.
Well, I just still continue to have some difficulty with this. I mean, I appreciate your position, and it's like I told you earlier, I understand that the city has additional pressures and I assume some of these are what are outlined in the memo that was waiting for us tonight here at our seats. But unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to support this. I think we made the deal with MetCAD at the board. We seem to have fund balance that could cover it. So I cannot support this.
Okay. Bill Brown?
Yeah, I'm going to support this. It's probably not good financial policy because it's a loan and it's not for current. It is for current expenses. I think if we had a loan policy, it probably wouldn't qualify. But I also see that we don't have the votes to get a budget amendment this year, which takes 6 votes. So I think the best bet is to try to come up with money to pay it off in the next budget. So hopefully at least give the next council and mayor, maybe, they'll take the seat a year from April, May, the flexibility to pay it off before when they get there, I guess.
Okay. We have a motion by Smythe, seconded by Roberts. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
No.
Mr. Madigan?
No.
Ms. Marlin?
No.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
You got one more.
Mayor Pressing?
Yes. Okay, well, that motion fails for lack of getting 6 votes.
This wasn't the amendment. This was just the...
It's the resolution.
Oh. Oh, that's the resolution. All right, well, I thought you said you were going to vote for it, so, okay, I guess it passed then. I'm thinking about the next one.
Yeah.
That one passed. Now we're on to the next one, which is ordinance number 2015-12-115, an ordinance revising the fiscal year 2015-16 budget, and this is for MetCAD contributions and other items. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept this.
Second.
Motion by Roberts, seconded by Ammons. Any other discussion? Diane?
I just had a question, and it's on page 3 of the, I guess it's the memo, again under fiscal impact, and where it said the revenues in the general operating fund would increase by about $250,000 this fiscal year, when the first half of revenues from the 2015 tax levy are received, and then about $500,000 annually. Was this $250,000 included in this 2015 year budget? And where?
I think you're looking at the tax levy, Councilville, and I think we're
I'm
still
on the
talking
wrong
about the
levy?
budget amendment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this goes to the. Yeah. Can you answer the question anyway?
Think about this for a minute. So we will receive roughly the first half of the 2015 levy in this fiscal year, and yes, the portion that goes to the general operating fund will be slightly higher than what we estimated when we prepared the budget. So we will have some additional property tax revenue this fiscal year.
How much?
Might have to compare it to my original estimates in the budget, but perhaps a couple $100,000.
So more than 94,000.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Well, I think you have to look at the whole picture of all the demands on our budget and also the uncertainty of what's going on at the legislature. So that's the reason I'm trying to give you some flexibility. If we get the money, we can certainly pay it off, but we don't have everything settled yet. It's unsettled at this point. And so we can always make a budget amendment if you decide that we have enough money. But right now, I want to be very cautious because we're not really sure what the legislature is going to do in terms of local government. Aaron?
So as it relates, so we're still talking about Medicaid actually making the allocation on the budget amendment, right? Is that what we're talking about now?
Yes, part of this budget amendment increases to allow us to make that first repayment.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I'm clear. The first 5-year smoothing out period, there's no interest on that, right?
Right.
And so in the second 5-year, it's a 1%.
Right.
And so our total payment for this year, 2015, is going to be how much?
Well, it's going to be what we've already budgeted plus another 19,000. So we'd be subtracting about, it would be 579,000 from last year plus, well, it's a lot. Put it that way. I don't have that exact, I'd have to calculate it out. What I've told you is what they've been asking for here and what they might ask for next year. And I think they'll probably have a more reasonable increase next year. So I don't think we'll have to do this again. I don't think they want to do it again. I know I don't want to do it again. And if we come into some unexpected money, if that's your top priority to pay the MetCAD bill, we can certainly do that. But I'd rather give us the flexibility to decide whether we want to do it or not. Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion by Roberts, seconded by Ammons.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, Mike.
Okay, so since this is an amendment that incorporates multiple items.
Right.
I've made my opinion known on the MedCAD repayment.
Okay.
Obviously, the majority of the council feels otherwise, and I respect that. In terms of the remaining fees, I don't have issue. So I will vote yes. I just wanted to explain why. One
Okay.
no and then a yes.
Okay.
I did have a question on the Bassett training fee real quickly. So that's, I assume Jolinda is who we're speaking of.
Right.
So
So we should isolate that? Did you want to do that?
Not necessarily.
This is bringing money in.
no, I don't think so, because this has nothing to do with the sale of it,
Okay.
in my opinion.
It's for training people.
Maybe I ought to check with council. I actually had more of a question about, this would be something that people would be able to use voluntarily if they wanted to avail themselves of this service.
Right.
Okay.
But we would get reimbursed for doing the training.
Correct.
Right.
So I guess I would ask council if he thinks that rises to the threshold of a recusal.
The statute provides, and I have to admit, I've not looked at where the Bassett training falls, but if it's in the, which I believe it is, it's in the Liquor Control Act of 1934, I think a recusal would be appropriate, but to allow a vote, you might want to consider dividing this issue between the Bassett and the rest of it.
Well, let's just make this quick. I've mentioned my support for the library fee, and I'll leave it at that. And there's a library share of Ameren franchise.
Oh,
fee
yeah,
right in
that's
this.
true. You're absolutely right. The Bassett fee is a separate ordinance.
Well, it's
We
all
have-
it's all in the same memo.
It's in the same memo, but they're two separate ordinances, probably for that very reason.
Yeah. So all we have to do is not take them all in omnibus fashion.
Right. So we're at the first ordinance, which is, 2015-12-115. And the next one with the Bassett is 116.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks for the clarification.
All right. Any other things on 115? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Oh, yes, I guess.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Mayor Pressing?
Yes. Thank you all. Okay, we will move, that motion carries, and we will move on to ordinance number 2015-12-116, an ordinance amending Urbana City Code, Chapter 14, regarding the schedule of fees, the Bassett certification fee.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Smythe, seconded by Roberts. Any discussion?
I need to recuse myself.
Mr. Michael P. Madigan will recuse himself. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries. Ordinance levying taxes for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2015 and ending June 30th, 2016. We have Elizabeth Hannon to talk about this. It's what we had before, correct?
Yes, this is exactly what we looked at when you approved the estimated levy back in November, so I don't think I need to go into a whole lot of detail, but the levy would be $7,250,000. We will abate the levy as needed to achieve a final tax rate of $1.35.5.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Smythe, seconded by Jacobson. Any discussion? Mr. Madigan.
So Elizabeth, in the pension levies, and just make this clear for me, the pension, this is an aggregate levy, correct? So we can talk about it all as like,
Well, you're levying a total amount, and you're levying for the purposes that are detailed in the ordinance.
okay. So the mayor's recommendation, which I believe is a prudent one for police and fire, is to a large degree helping to fund the union contract, the contractual salary increases.
Yes, that was one of the issues we discussed when we decided to levy for the pension funds based on the 26-year, 90% amortization.
Correct. So out of the pension levies, how much of the $575,000 estimated cost is covered by that reduction in the pension levy?
The vast majority of it, probably about $500,000.
Okay. Because I did support the final contracts. So, but I cannot support this. I appreciate the mayor's approach to funding the contracts without just increasing the levy, but approaching it a different way. I appreciate that very much. But I will stress the same concern that I had previously, which this puts us further out of balance with the city of Champaign and puts us in a even less competitive position than we have been in the past. And I know it's not a lot, but each little bit here and each little bit there, and some people talk about, well, this isn't very much. We ought to talk about the school levy or the park district levy or some other folks. Well, guess what? They're all taken in total when the taxpayer gets his bill. So for that reason, I cannot support this, but I do very much appreciate the approach to paying for the contracts.
Okay, anyone else? Charlie?
I will point out that this is a .0088 cent difference. It's minuscule, and it's within rounding error, which is what happened last year, I think, that led to us getting less than the 1.3 355, which has been what we've been aiming for some time.
And we did just reduce overall taxes by 3 cents, I think, earlier this evening. So
And
we're
I
not,
didn't
we're not
support-
all bad.
I didn't support that either because it should have been much more.
Okay.
But anyway,
We're moving
like I
in the
say,
right direction.
I appreciate the efforts on one of the levies that is contained here.
Okay, anyone else? Did you want to say something, Bill?
I think our rate was $1.35.5 before last year, right? So this, compared to 2 years ago, it's a level rate.
Right, it was $1.35.5 for the 2013 tax levy, then it was $1.3462 for the 2015 levy.
Okay.
So, just a minor fluctuation.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, we have a motion by Smythe, seconded by Jacobson. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
No.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Do I get to vote on that one or not? The levy? I'll vote yes.
Mayor Pressing?
Mhm. Okay, that motion carries. Ordinance number 2015-12-118, an ordinance directing the Champaign County Clerk to abate the tax levy for the general corporate fund for the year beginning July 1st, 2015 and ending June 30th, 2016.
So moved.
Seconded?
Motion by Smythe, seconded by Roberts. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Mayor Pressing?
Yes, that motion carries. Next, ordinance number 2015-12-119, an ordinance directing the Champaign County Clerk to abate a portion of the 2015 tax levy related to general obligation bonds, Series 2012, and general obligation bonds, Series 2014.
I move approval.
Second?
Motion by Brown, seconded by Roberts. Any discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
Mayor Pressing?
Yes. Ordinance number 2015-12-120, an ordinance approving a waiver of the requirement to construct sidewalks at Oak Brook Circle in Birchcrest 3rd Subdivision.
Move approval.
Motion by Ammons, seconded by Madigan. Do we want an explanation, or should we just, we should have an explanation. Okay.
Let me just refer to a couple graphics here, so bear with me a moment. So the request before you is to waive the sidewalk requirements for a small section of a cul-de-sac that was constructed 30-some years ago. This is a staff-driven waiver request for a few reasons. One, it's a long outstanding issue that we'd like to get resolved. Two, there is a potential encumbrance on a piece of property that we'd like, well, the property owner would probably also like to have resolved. And the neighbors have actually long requested that the sidewalks not be installed. So we're trying to clear up an old item. So that's why we're here today. Apparently I might not have graphics, so that's fine. So in essence, where we're talking about is a small section just south of Meadowbrook Park. Hopefully I will be able to keep the graphic up here. It's called Oak Brook Circle. It's about 180 feet long of a cul-de-sac. It serves 4 lots. Here we go. So there's Meadowbrook, there's Oak Brook Circle. I'll just point out that this is in the extraterritorial jurisdiction. It is not within the city limits, but because it's within the extraterritorial jurisdiction, we as the city do have the subdivision regulations in place. So this plat was originally approved in the late 1970s. Soon thereafter, the streets were constructed. Most of the sidewalks in the neighborhood were constructed, but the sidewalks along this particular street were not constructed. Here's a little blow up here. there's a long history involving the bond that we originally got and then was extended. Ultimately, the bond was traded in for lot 24 here as security. So instead of being able to cash in the bond and build the sidewalks ourselves, as the city, as typically happens, we were told that we would have an interest in lot 24. After that, of course, many decades afterwards, that lot was sold in a tax sale, so there is some lack of clarity on if there is even an encumbrance on this lot. But like I said, we would like to clear that up so that the owner can do what he would like to do with that lot. Then finally, I mentioned that the neighbors themselves don't really want the sidewalk installed. As you can see, that serves 4 lots, as I mentioned. It has 3 owners. One of the owners is in the audience here, and both these owners have submitted documentation that they support the waiver and do not want to see the sidewalks constructed. This other owner is the actual original developer of the subdivision, and he actually has a piece of the sidewalk built adjacent to his lot. But in essence, what we're looking at here is a waiver of the sidewalk requirements because, one, we're not quite sure if anyone, is obligated to construct it. If it were to be constructed, the neighbors don't want it constructed. It would impact the mature landscaping that's been planted. I could go on, but I won't. Another piece of this is not really a waiver, but it is, just wanted to clear it up. The original plat showed a sidewalk connection from the South Vine Street cul-de-sac all the way up to Meadowbrook Park. Since that was part of the plat, this area, which is shown right now as right-of-way, was vacated by the township. So this no longer is right-of-way. When this was vacated, we did not get an easement for that sidewalk. So this property now is split down here with the Feinbergs owning half and the Freifogel owning half. So even if someone desired a sidewalk there, it would require somebody, not sure who, to get an easement and then construct it. So also a huge obstacle there to get that constructed. And then once you got to the boundary of Meadowbrook Park, it wouldn't connect to anything. So there is concern about building a sidewalk to nowhere, of course. So because this is a subdivision waiver, there are criteria that need to be met. The Plan Commission has found that they have been met. Basically, it has to do with, it's a site-specific waiver. So in this case, it is a short cul-de-sac. It serves only 4 lots. 2 of those lots are developed. The other 2 in the back are not. So these do not have homes on them. These 2 lots actually have access to sidewalk if you go along Vine Street. Should these be developed in the future, which is possible, it might be, the traffic generated by those would not present any safety hazards should there not be sidewalks surrounding the cul-de-sac. So that's addresses some of the waivers, including not being necessary, would not harm nearby properties. As I mentioned, the adjacent property owners would rather not have the sidewalk there. And also would not negatively impact public health. As I mentioned, it would not create a safety hazard. So that's the summary there, as I mentioned, and there is an updated ordinance in front of you reflecting the Plan Commission vote, since they did just consider this Thursday evening. They voted 7-1 to support the waiver. They wanted some specifics in there about addressing, but we've put that in the ordinance.
I just have a question. There was sort of a abandoned house, that Mercalo. Has that been torn down or repaired?
It wasn't there the last time I took a site
Okay.
visit a couple of weeks ago. So
Do you remember that incident about? There was another, okay. Thank you for explaining that. Okay, Bill Brown.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the waiver. Since you brought it up, the connectivity to Meadowbrook Park, it seems like, I mean, I realize this isn't in the city right now, right?
Correct.
None of this subdivision is. But at some point, it would probably be an advantage to have a hard path through there that would be handicap accessible. And is there a strategy to accomplish that? No strategy. Any ideas to accomplish that?
No, there is no strategy to accomplish that.
Okay.
It's worth pointing out that the people who live there don't pay the Park District taxes.
Well, at some point, they may become part of the city.
Right, we could trade
and
them a path for paying taxes, maybe.
So I guess maybe the strategy would be to deal with it when it becomes part of the city and it's already built on or something.
Did you want to say something, Bill? Okay.
No.
Any questions on this? All right, we have a motion by Ammons, seconded by Madigan, is that correct? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries. Thank you. Ordinance number 2015-12-121, an ordinance amending Urbana City Code, Chapter 14, Section 14.7, 14-7, regarding the schedule of fees, Urbana Enterprise Zone fees. Brandon Boyes.
Hello again. So Urbana is on the cusp of the certification of its new enterprise zone. So in keeping with the planning of the programs of the new zone, staff has brought forward this ordinance to amend the fee schedule to provide for enterprise zone fees. I guess I'm curious there's many different ways I could discuss this topic, so I'd like to hear from council, I suppose.
Diane.
The fee schedule was set to cover total cost of staffing for the administering the enterprise zone program. So what is the total cost of staffing for administering this program?
Well, there's no set cost. I think it's important to recognize that the prior zone we administered for 30 years collected no fees, despite being eligible under the statute to do so, and it being a common practice in other communities to do so. So when we set out to design this new zone, from the onset, our intention and then our discussions with all 8 taxing bodies that participated was that we intended to charge fees. So we don't know the precise amount that would be required in order to administer the zone. However, the fees are designed to be scaled to the amount of activity within the zone, both in terms of projects that are eligible for the sales tax exemption certificate and the property tax abatement, which is a per application fee. And then those are individually scaled to the amount of staff time we anticipate. But if you also look at the 3-year plan for the zone, we now have reporting requirements that we will be obligated to report to the state of Illinois and as to our progress in meeting those goals. So we have a lot heftier requirements in terms of the kinds of outreach and engagement activities we're going to be required to do.
Right, which is why I asked what it will cost the city to administer the program.
I mean, we would anticipate, at least half of a position is going to be going
Which
towards
is
these activities.
Libby, did you want to comment on that?
Well, I agree with Brandon. It's a conservative estimate would be at least half a position. So, and could go up depending on the level of activity. It's taken quite a bit of time previously, and going forward, this will be more time intensive. It's a more complex program. So, half the position dedicated to the program, plus time that Brandon Boyes would spend managing the oversight and other staff to support. So that would be on the, let's see, 60,000 on that, somewhere in that range. So.
And it's important to note that this isn't new necessarily. We don't really anticipate a huge difference in terms of staffing levels from previously, but we do have specific goals that we need to achieve.
So we didn't charge fees before,
Correct.
and you anticipate about 60,000 a year.
Yes, based on the 2014 numbers. If we were to have a lot of activity, which frankly that's the goal of this, we're trying to encourage more both residential and commercial development, then that could go higher. But That's just to give a good sense of, based on recent activity levels, what it would generate.
So we'll know after the first year or so
Yes.
how much time actually is involved. Okay.
Okay, Dennis and then Charlie.
Yeah, as far as the abatement of property taxes, is this specifically the city's property tax share, or does this have to do with several different taxing bodies
Yeah.
offering incentives as a TIF district might?
Well, it's fundamentally different from a TIF district, but 7 taxing parties are participating. The city, the township, the county, the school district, which of course is the largest share, the
Yeah.
park district, and MTD, as well as Parkland College. However, Parkland College is only participating on the commercial incentives. So we also have property tax abatements for residential incentives, which is actually something we're really hoping will generate more projects in East and South Urbana in terms of residential development. So that's the lineup, and it was achieved through direct outreach to each taxing party or each taxing partner's board. So there were actually are 7 separate resolutions that aggregate to that incentive.
So this is a really healthy program, and if we can achieve it, this is going to be a very useful tool for the community and the city to grow. I did read that these incentives would not be offered to any development that's already in the TIF district, a current TIF district. Is that correct?
There's a caveat to it. The property tax abatements that we were just discussing that all the local taxing partners opted into, those cannot be combined with the TIF district. However, sales tax exemption certificates, that means no sales tax on new construction materials that are eligible going towards a project, that can be combined with the TIF district. So generally, though, our TIF districts are in areas that are commercially zoned and where we would expect commercial projects. So you can get a TIF incentive and still receive the sales tax exemption from the state.
So that's actually a plus for those individuals who are building within the TIF district, because they can actually get something for the construction costs.
Yes, it makes our TIF districts stronger as well,
Yeah.
'cause by working together.
Okay, very good.
Charlie?
Yeah, and I think this is related here. So the state fee is a $50,000 maximum, so I can see how the 0.5% of total construction material costs not to exceed, so it's free if it's less than 5,000, so it's a small project, isn't going to pay. I'm trying to understand the numbers here in that table on page 2.
Sure. If it's the project's material costs, so, as a good ballpark, a typical project would be in the order of 50% of its project would be construction materials often. So basically, if the project's 10,000 or less, that tends to be the kind of project that we would exempt from that fee. The goal wasn't to have it be a burden for small projects. It was really intended to capture larger projects.
So for example, the person applying on a big project they'd see 9.5% savings instead of 10% on sales tax or something like that, right?
Correct.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Correct.
So basically, they're giving us a little bit of what they save. Okay.
Exactly.
I understand.
Yeah.
And then so the property tax abatement, the 5-year versus 6 or 7, is that because the 5-year is a residential building and the 6 or why there's a big jump here from 250 to 600?
Yeah. So we doubled it from $50 so it's $50 for 5 years. So that's just the processing of the abatement agreement and reviewing it on an annual basis and communicating the abatement to the county clerk. For the commercial side, there's jobs reporting. So we actually are going to contact that business as well and check with them on their employment generating and to ensure that they're still within the range that they qualify for that higher incentive. So that's why there's more administrative work involved, and that's why it goes up.
Okay, and then what's the boundary amendment? That's if we have to change the
the boundary of the
actual
enterprise zone.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so one of the things when we reviewed our current enterprise zone prior to making this application, we discovered that Urbana had made 20 to 30 amendments to the enterprise zone, and we made one recently. I think it was within the last 18 months, and it was a very intensive process. I think it took us 6 to 9 months to complete. It involves a lot of review by multiple state agencies, and they are going to be stricter in the future. So in many ways, the process, the very intensive process we went through to qualify the zone that we expect to go into effect in 2016, it'll be kind of a mini review process of looking at the same sets of criteria for your zone extension, or for if you were to amend the boundary. So for those reasons that we had seen that it was administratively burdensome to have to made a lot of changes in the past, and then the fact that it was going to be even harder to do it in the future, we sought to make our zone boundary as inclusive as possible so that we wouldn't have to be in the position of having a bird in hand project and then trying to go through this tedious process to get it included, which is what we were able to do successfully in the past. So that's why we made the zone the way we did. That's also why we actually don't believe that this amendment process would be very likely to occur, because we really believe we've done a good job of getting all likely sites that are near the city boundary already within the zone. The $1,500 fee honestly would not cover the costs, but it for any amendment process most likely, but that wasn't really our goal in that instance. It was just to
Excellent. Yeah, well, I think this is a very exciting bit of work, and I compliment you and staff for getting this done. I just really look forward to getting it off the ground come next year. So hopefully it'll make the last steps out of the governor's office.
Are you making a motion?
I would like to.
Second.
Well, I can't do it then.
Sorry.
Gotta look this way once.
Sorry.
Yeah, I guess you're supposed to just butt in on the chair
sorry.
to make these things happen.
I listened to the last person talking, so.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So state law requires this be certified by the end of the year. There's 2 weeks to the end of the year, and the state doesn't always follow its own laws. So
what?
Is this another thing being held hostage in the stalemate, or what are the chances of this actually being certified?
Well, the tone of the Secretary Schultz's initial press release on this cast a lot more doubts, I think, in our minds early on, but we've since heard from the Secretary at the State Enterprise Zone Association conference, and he pledged to the room full of Enterprise Zone administrators, probably the people who were most vested in this outcome in the state of Illinois, that it would happen, and that it was also a requirement of the law. So we've heard secondhand that their staff was making preparations to accomplish this. So
Is this coming? This comes from DCEO, or does the governor have to allow them to do that?
well, the DCO secretary is appointed by the governor, so the nature of that relationship I can't speak to, but it is the responsibility of the Department of Commerce, I believe, in the statute.
So if we wanted to encourage this to happen, who would we contact?
I'm not convinced that we need to be proactive at this time, but I suppose if we wanted to be proactive, we could contact our legislators.
I think Michael J. Madigan, Michael P.
Okay.
Well, I think actually that Michael P. Madigan may be in the best position to put in a word for us.
Absolutely.
So, we're counting on you, Mike, bring home the bacon.
Okay, so just for my information here, I have Smythe as the maker of the motion. Who seconded it?
I did.
Jacobson. All right. All right. Anyone else want to talk about this?
Just one quick.
Mr. Madigan.
One quick question. So on the enterprise zone fee, the sales tax exemption certificates, it says, the memo says they're issued directly by the Illinois Department of Revenue. What's the city's role in that?
We we collect all the information and we do all the interfacing with the local developer, contractor, and subcontractors. The new rules used to be able to kind of just give out as many copies of the certificate as they needed, and we actually issued that piece of paper from our office. Now we log into the system, and they're electronically administered by the Department of Revenue. So really all the data entry is, and at the local enterprise zone administrator still acts as the gatekeeper in a lot of ways, but now the Department of Revenue directly emails those out to contractors, subcontractors, owners, anybody who's buying materials on the project.
So it's the contractor's obligation to provide the information for what's been purchased.
Yes.
The city actually reviews that, or is this just we take the information in and?
Yeah, we take it, we do a simple vetting just to make sure it makes sense within what we know about the project, because these are also contingent on a building permit. And then we put it into the Department of Revenue system. The Department of Revenue then issues a email, I believe once a year, in which they audit how much did you actually spend on directly to those purchasers. So each purchaser, each certificate estimates how much they anticipate purchasing under their contract.
Okay, we have a motion by Smythe, seconded by Jacobson. Is there any other discussion? Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries. Resolution number 2015-12-072R, a resolution of protest against a proposed map amendment to the Champaign County zoning map. And this is a rezoning of a 10-acre tract of land known as 2502 North Cunningham Avenue from County R4 to County Ag 2. Now, is this one of those strange things that we're supposed to vote no on?
Yes, so the options.
Yes, we're supposed to vote no.
I'll get into the specifics in a moment, but the options are to either defeat the resolution of protest, to defeat the resolution of protest and add some provisions, or to approve the resolution of protest. So what this means is that since this is a county board case, if you were to defeat the resolution of protest, they go ahead and do their business as usual. If you adopt the resolution of protest, then the county board needs to have a supermajority to approve this rezoning. So let me tell you a little bit about this case. It is off of North Cunningham. It's outlined here in blue. It's a 10-acre site which has, since 1992, been used as a private event center in a rural setting. And it's used for university groups, and they come by bus. So although it's been used like this since 1992, it is not zoned appropriately for this use. I think this recently came to the attention of the county staff, and so they are going through this process in order to change the zoning, and then subsequently the applicant would need to get a special use permit even to continue this use that's been long established. Just briefly to get into all of the criteria that we look at. As was mentioned, the current zoning is R4, it's a residential zoning. The proposed zoning is Ag 2, agriculture. It is a very rural site, so in the future, should it be annexed into the city, the automatic zoning of that would be an agricultural zoning. It would fit with that. And then in terms of surrounding zoning, as you can see, the county zoning it would be consistent with the county zoning surrounding with Ag to the east, and a little bit of ag in the city zoning to the southwest. Basically, we don't see a lot of issues with it. We, to our knowledge, have not received any noise complaints or any complaints of that sort. I'm not sure who even knew it was there, to be honest with you. Plan Commission felt the same way. They voted 7-1 to recommend that you defeat the resolution. They didn't see that this was an issue, and it was just correcting something that's there now and would be consistent in the future should it be part of the city.
Diane?
I move to defeat the resolution of protest in case number CCZBA 817 AM 15.
Motion by Marlin, seconded by Smythe. Any discussion? Dennis?
And the the agricultural use, I guess you're going to call it agricultural use of the site, seems appropriate today, but it's right next to city properties that could well be developed now that there's been demolition of a hotel. And it opens up, we talked about the demolition as leading to an opening up of a possible development, maybe a residential development or possibly a commercial development. And it seems to me that in the future, we're going to probably end up seeing this piece of property again in a rezoning issue. That's my imagination, because if there was a residential development, this site could be subdivided, and what would be more commodious to upscale residential development than having a few lakes around your property? I mean, I could see this as being, high-class resort, living space in the future. So it's kind of curious, but I guess that's a decision that's going to be left to the future because we can't control development, and we don't know when this will be coming. When development will occur in this area, but I suspect that this will be rezoned in the future.
Eric?
This is a wonderful place. I've been to a number of events there, and it's just a terrific venue, and Loretta Desson, who owns it and runs it, is a wonderful, even from my perspective, elderly lady, but she's just as sharp as a tack. And frankly, I hope that when Loretta passes on, somebody else will just keeping on as it is. It's an absolute jewel.
There are peacocks wandering around, so it's very nice. Okay, do you want to say something, Bill?
Yeah, I've been there too. It is a great place to have your events or meetings, and fraternities, sororities have things. And I saw Loretta Desson last night at Rockin' for Ray, so I don't think she's going anywhere soon. She was at Iron Post partying down and raising money for Ray Spooner.
I'm not surprised.
Okay, we have a motion by Marlin, seconded by Smythe. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Ammons?
I want to make sure I understand what we're doing here, right? So we're voting to
defeat.
To defeat.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson?
Yes.
Mr. Madigan?
Yes.
Ms. Marlin?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
Mr. Smythe?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Can I ask a quick question before we adjourn?
Sure.
It was in relationship to a question that was raised about fees or fines, and it was raised last week about the IDOT traffic stop. When there's a fine imposed, who imposes it? We impose the fine. It's the state. So there's a state fine from the statute, and there's also city fines. Is that correct?
It depends on the ordinance.
Right. It depends on how a matter is.
Well,
I'll use the term prosecuted loosely.
So this one was in direct relationship to marijuana possessions and stuff like that. So is there a city fine and a state fine?
It depends on whether the matter is prosecuted under the city or cannabis ordinance or the state's cannabis ordinance.
So
Eric.
Ultimately, a judge, if it goes that far, will actually set the fine.
Yeah, but there are two avenues for imposing a marijuana penalty. One, as Jim said, is a city ordinance. One is a state statute. The city ordinance is completely a civil matter. It has the force of law of a traffic ticket. Whereas if one is charged under the state statute, depending on the severity, is it simple possession or whatever, correct me if I'm wrong, it may be a misdemeanor or it may be more serious than that. Is that correct?
I've not looked at criminal penalties or the charging of cannabis violations under state statute.
Okay, so I'm trying to get an understanding. There was a constituent who asked about this, and I said that I would raise it. So I wanted to just try to get some clarity on who imposes these, who determines that a $300 fine is what we should have on a simple marijuana possession? Who makes that determination, and who gets that money? That's, I mean, let's just cut to the chase of it. That's what the question is about.
I read the ordinance recently. I know that it is a city ordinance that sets the $300 fine. From what I remember, and the chief's here if you want to ask him, but from what I remember in discussions before with the chief was each officer bases their decision on how to charge it depending on the totality of the circumstances. So they use their own judgment whether to charge it as a city violation or as a state violation. And but yeah, our fine is $300.
We changed the law to allow for a local ordinance,
Right.
so it wouldn't have to be a state charge.
Right.
We did that a few years ago.
What happens is if it's charged as a local ordinance, it goes to ordinance violation court. If it's, which is quasi-civil, quasi-criminal. If it's charged as a state violation, it's over in the state's attorney's office, and if they proceed, it's in the criminal courts.
So,
But the
but-
judge ultimately sets the penalty in either instance.
So the money then that comes on a $300 fine gets divvied up through the city of Urbana, the states, the county. And
No.
I'm just trying to.
If it's
No,
a
if it's
city ordinance, it just goes to the city, and if it's a state or
Yeah, I don't-
law, it goes to the state.
Yeah, I'm not sure who all gets a state fine, because there are court costs, et cetera, and various fees. But city ordinances, any city violation, this one that you're talking about or any other city violation, the fine goes to the city if awarded and if collected.
Okay, so city, who, for us then, who decides, if it's a city ordinance, who decides the amount for that comes before the council and we agree?
No. We set the ordinance.
If I understand it rightly, the ordinance sets a maximum amount, but the judge will set the actual fine. That's just exactly the same as a traffic ticket. Do I have that right, Jim? Or Pat, or Jim?
I haven't looked at the cannabis ordinance in terms of, what, I know the fine is $300. I don't know if that's a max or a minimum.
Or, yeah.
But the judge ultimately, the judge has to ultimately fine within some limit.
Well, what we could do is talk about this in January when we bring up the IDOT report, because that's a question about the recommendation.
Chief, can you answer it, Chief? Do you know the answer?
Periodically, the finance department will ask for the city council to approve a fee schedule. That fee schedule, as determined by you folks, is either blessed or reduced or increased based on the requests from whatever department.
Okay.
So it's fixed, not variable?
Oh, okay, so it's part of our schedule of fees and fines. So it's just like a parking ticket or going through a stop sign or whatever. Okay.
There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.